And welcome back to another episode of Life in Prison. As always, my name is Zach. For the ones that don't know, unfortunately I spent 5 years of my life in maximum security prison, West Virginia, up at Mount Olive Correctional Complex and Huntsville Correctional Center. Since returning, I've got my medical degree, started working in urgent care, helping others who unfortunately cannot help themselves. What I also do is speak about my time in prison along with getting out. I also do video chat interviews with inmates that's still locked up in prison, regardless if it's serving life sentence for murder, stealing, robbing, selling drugs, all the above, just showing you a first-hand look what's really actually like living life in prison. You can go down this path, you can shoot guns, you can rob people, you can sell dope. At the end of the day, it's gonna get you a 7x12, and I promise you, you're not gonna like it. So what we're talking about today is the time I saw an inmate stab a correctional officer. Normally, at the West Virginia prison state-wise, it's not really like that. Normally stuff like that happens up at Mount Olive just because you get individuals that's never going home. So most of the time, I'm not gonna say never, but most of the time it's always inmates that do stuff like that, pretty much throwing their life away, that have bigger sentences, that really don't care. It's not normally the lower classification prisons. Unfortunately, this happened not at Mount Olive, but at Huntsville. So I was sitting back in segregation. This was the time that there was about 37 of us that were back in the hole for a prison riot that ended up happening, right? One of my early videos, I ended up talking about the prison riot and how it all became about and everything else. So there's a lot of us that got a fuck ton of whole time pretty much. You know, I ended up doing 11 months myself. There was people that got out sooner and there was people that got out longer. A lot of times what will happen is once you go back to the hole, if you do anything dumb pretty much and accumulate more write-ups, then you'll stay back there longer. So that's why there's a lot of dudes that end up staying back in the hole for years on end just because for some reason they may not have wanted to go back to the yard for whatever reason. Sometimes people get too comfortable back there in the hole because everything's brought to them. Their food's brought to them. You don't really have to do anything. So a lot of people end up just staying back in the hole. One of my dogs, Gigi, is currently serving some time up at Winchester right now in Virginia. What happening is he was back there in the hole. There was a CO that, you know, kept messing with him. You know, I guess he kept punking him out, whatever it may be, right? So Gigi, George Good, end up feeling some type of way about this, right? So back in the hole, they have a long vertical window and then a bean hole, a bean slot where they can open the door up and serve you your food or get you handcuffed whenever you leave out the cell, because whenever you leave out your cell in segregation back in the hole, you will always be handcuffed and shackled. Plus there will be COs accompanying you wherever you go, whether it be to the shower, to make a phone call, to medical. If you need to speak with somebody, you're gonna be shackled every single time, right? So the CO, and like I said, kept punking Gigi, right? For whatever reason, kept punking him. Gigi felt some type of way about it. So back there, they'd make their rounds once every hour, sometimes sooner, sometimes every few hours. So what ended up happening is these windows are supposed to be shatterproof, right? They're back in the hole. Plus they're only about 3 to 4 inches wide, 2.5, 3 feet tall, right? So what's happening is at the bottom of these doors, there were guards. There are these aluminum guards holding so no one could get anything in or out. Well, over the course of years, these guards have been starting to wear down, right? So they end up starting breaking. So what happened was there's a couple different inmates that eventually ended up getting a hold of these aluminum guards. They ended up breaking them off, prying them off, bringing them into their cell and making knives with them back in segregation. The COs do not regularly check these guards at the bottom of the door. So after all this ended up happening, they end up removing all of them just because of what happened, right? So there was a few of these knives getting passed around back in the hole. So Gigi ended up breaking out his window. How he did this, I do not know. He ended up breaking out his window, and since there was no guard at the bottom of his door, he cleaned up the glass. He'd take a towel, throw the towel out underneath his door, and when he'd bring it back, the glass would come back into the cell with him. So the COs, they'd walk by and not see anything. So what happened is he waited and waited and waited. So he took a towel, a regular towel, and stuffed it up where the window would be at. That way the CO would have to stop at his cell door, knock on the door, and tell him to remove the towel. So what happened was he waited and waited. He had one of these nice little shanks made up and was waiting. So what happened was we all know what's about to happen. So we're all looking out our windows trying to see what's going on. Oh shit, he's gonna do it. I don't know if he's gonna do it. I think he's gonna do it. Man, he's fucking an idiot. Yeah, he's about to do it. So there was a bunch of us sitting there waiting, watching, see what was about to happen. So what happened was the CO ended up walking by, stood right in front of his door, knocked on the door, and told him, hey, good, take the blind down. You know what I'm saying? Because they need to be able to look in your cell and see. That's why the lights never go off in prison because they need to visually see you whenever they do their rounds. So he stood in front of the door, knocked on it, and said, "Good, take the blind down." So Gigi was waiting, and what he did was he grabbed the towel with one hand, pulled it down, and as he's pulling down, he shoved his hand out the broken window and ended up getting the CO here and here on his arm. You gotta think, these COs are wearing vests, right? So he pretty much, what he said was the moment he pulled it down and was looking at him, he was going for a vulnerable spot, right? A place where it would actually hit him. Now, the CO wasn't seriously injured. He did get hurt from the 2 poke marks from, the shank, but he wasn't seriously injured. So Gigi ended up pulling it down and hit him twice before the guard ended up backing up and fucking hauling ass. Eventually they came in, goon squad ready, obviously. There was about 10 of them, ended up beating the dog shit out of him. But at the end of the day, I guess what point he was making was don't punk him. They ended up beating the fuck out of him, but I will tell you that CO was not acting like a hard ass anytime after that. So there was another time that I ended up seeing a CO getting sprayed with his own mace back in the hole. So there's a dude named Cleveland, call him Baby Cleve. Individuals that watch my videos that did time with me, they know exactly what I'm talking about because he was just in the hole all the time. So his name was Cleveland, right? So he was down at Huttonsville before they shipped him up to Mount Olive. Well, what happened was while he was getting handcuffed, because whenever you get handcuffed, you'll bend down, squat down, stick your arms through the bean hole behind you so they can handcuff your hands behind you. That's how you end up going to the shower. Your hands are supposed to be behind you. So what happened was, whenever Cleveland turned around, the COs were looking at the keys, fidgeting around. What he ended up doing was slipping his cuff in front of him, right? He squatted down, got him in front. So by the time they opened the door, his hands were already in front of him. Now, the CO that was opening the door, this dude named Scheller, he had a big old mustache on his face. He had a caterpillar on his face. So the moment he opened the door, he didn't realize what was going on. Cleveland grabbed his mace, and the mace that they walk around with is some shit. It's called Phantom, right? It's a tube about this long. It's got a nice little handle, and they have it in their little holster, right? So he ended up grabbing the mace and just maced the fuck out of the CO. No split reaction. He did not know what was coming, and he got fucking smacked all in his face. Problem being is, you're back in segregation. So now that Cleveland has this mace and handcuffed in front of him, there's only so many places he can go. He cannot get out the pod. So the CO obviously ran the fuck off to go get his little buddies, and Cleveland was just running around with the pod with some mace. So obviously he went after them and maced them as much as he could. Eventually the goon squad came in and ended up trashing this motherfucker. That was the reason that he ended up getting shipped from Huttonsville up to Mount Olive, because you pretty much assaulted multiple COs with their own mace. You made them look real crazy. If you haven't already done it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification button so you'll be first informed when I upload. Today was just a short video on the crazy things I saw while I was back in the hole. CO ended up getting stabbed, and some COs ended up getting sprayed with their own mace. If you enjoyed the content, go ahead and hit that like button. I do not condone or do I promote prison violence or any type of violence at all that could get you locked up. What I simply do is talk about the times that I've been on the other side of the line, just showing you a first-hand look what it's actually like living life in prison. So as always, guys, I send my utmost level to respect. Keep pushing positivity, keep your head up, and hope you guys come back for more. We gone.